video, I wanted to talk to you about my stupidly simple process that I use to sell, whether that was software or AI and automation. Most people think selling is sleazy. You've got to be this car salesman, you've got to know all these tactics, you've got to buy heart all these scripts and things like that. I think there's a much more human way of selling, and that's something that's worked well for me, and that's what I'd like to share with you. What I'm here to tell you is everything that has worked for me, and these are very low pressure sales tactics that I've used to sell over 100 clients. This is basically just what has worked and how to think about sales differently, why you should consider doing it. And I say this because I was someone who was an introvert, just coder, who used to love sitting behind the laptop, never wanted to get in front of clients, and why that changed. So, to tell you a quick story, about 8 years ago, I think, my best friend and I had just graduated from college. Right, he had done hotel management, and I had completed my bachelor's in computer engineering. And he had this dream of starting his own cafe for as long as I could remember. And now he finally had the opportunity and chance to do so. So he went about getting everything set up, prepped everything for a launch, got his chief guests to come visit, everything was set up. And the launch went fantastically. But 1 month into running his cafe, COVID hit, and there was an immediate lockdown. And now, all of a sudden, he had no way of getting people into his business. And so, as were most businesses struggling at the time, he was like, I don't know what to do. And back where our hometown is in the small state of Goa, websites weren't a big thing. Online food delivery wasn't even a thing. And so he was like, what am I going to do now? How am I going to survive? And so, I didn't know either, because I just graduated from college and didn't know anything about online business or anything really. Right, I didn't even know how to build a website, even though I just completed my bachelor's degree. And this is where we were taught so many things but not skills for the real world. So anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, we went to a friend's place for lunch, and that's where we saw these QR code menus. And everyone knows what they are, but back then they really weren't a thing. And so he saw this and he was like, this is quite amazing, can you build something similar for me? And like I mentioned, I hadn't even learned how to build a website despite having completed my 4 years of engineering. So anyway, I told him, because he's my best friend, I'll try figuring it out. And so I spent the next week or so learning everything I could until I finally had a prototype ready. And again, this is all pre vibe coding and pre AI, so just keep in mind. So it was a lot of Stack Overflow and Google, but I finally figured it out. Then once I gave it to him, he was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Maybe he was exaggerating, but it worked, right? It was a solution to a real problem that he was really struggling with, and it worked. And so then we had the idea of, can we sell this to other businesses? Now, because I had built it in code, it was a very resellable and reusable solution. All we had to do was change out the names, like his business for their business, their address instead of his address, and their menu items instead of his menu items. And that's what we started doing. The business grew amazingly well. And while it was growing, I always had this thing of software should be dirt cheap or free. And I always had this idea of build it and they will come. And so we never invested in marketing. We never really charged people for it either. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I feel I made. Because of that one decision not to charge customers, when I was helping them solve a real problem, we never really had the finances to scale and to grow that business into something that could have been truly massive. I say that in hindsight now. You don't know what you don't know. And just on a side note, this is a very powerful lesson that I would discover years later that I wanted to share with you now, which is there was this marketer doing this conference, and he asked people in the audience, how much, what is the salary you make each year? He was talking to this lady who was a teacher, and she said, I make $50,000 a year. And then he wrote his income each year, and his income was $1 million a year. So he wrote $1 million a year on top. He wrote her salary $50,000 below. And then he subtracted the two and wrote $950,000. Every year, you pay life $950,000 for not knowing how to make a million. And that was such a powerful lesson because this ignorance debt, the things we don't know, we have no idea how much they are costing us. If I knew, say, as much or even a fraction of what I know now about sales and marketing and the importance of it for any business, like I was telling you, lead gen and sales are the lifeblood of any business. If I knew some of these things back then, I would have approached the business very differently. But I didn't, and it cost me dearly because we couldn't scale that business and eventually we had to shut it down. But regrets about it because there is so much that I learned from it. And that is why one of the strongest lessons that I hold dear is this idea of all that we pay for in life is the information we don't know. Choosing to invest in education is always going to be the biggest and best decision you will ever make. Education and skills are something that no government, no school, no spouse, no one can ever take away from you. And they are skills and education and knowledge you get to keep with you for the rest of your life. So, even you being here today, I'm so grateful and glad to have you here. I hope that you've learned a lot already, but even as we go through the remainder of these modules, that you continue to learn and I'm able to share with you the mistakes I've made so that you can hopefully avoid them and shorten your path to success. So, coming back to why I was telling you about that story, right? So, the couple of big mistakes I made was thinking of build it and they will come and not investing as much as I could have in marketing and sales. The second big mistakes I made was not charging what it's worth because even though I had a real solution to a real problem, I did not want to sell it because I always thought selling is sleazy and I had all these bad ideas about what will people think. I never wanted to be like this car salesman. Basically, a lot of limiting beliefs around selling. And so I never did it. But the downside of that, which was the biggest mistake I feel, was that we never had the funds required to scale. The idea that you don't need to know how to sell as long as you have a solution to a problem that someone already wants. And if you are wondering, where do I find these problems that businesses already have and that they are willing to pay for? Great question. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about in the next lesson, what to sell. But to give you a high level overview of that, and this is where platforms like Fiverr and Upwork become so important because businesses that already know they have a problem, and we will talk about this later as well, the two types of businesses and problems, whether they're unaware or problem aware. But the advantage of using platforms like Fiverr and where businesses know they have a problem, they go and post this problem online because it's a marketplace, right? So they go and post their problems online that they are struggling with in their business. And basically, freelancers get to apply to work with this business, right? And the advantage of doing that is you have this ready pool of people who know they have a problem, who just need someone to solve it for them. The slight disadvantage with working in these marketplaces is that they can oftentimes be a little competitive. You might be competing on price, you might be competing on timelines, and things like that. We will talk more about this later as well when we discuss red oceans and blue oceans. But the takeaway and how you can get the best out of both worlds, and this is the process that I'm using right now, is that I go onto Upwork and I look at the problems that people and businesses already have. More often than not, like I bid and I try and solve these problems. I'm going to give you my journey with Upwork in a bit, but basically, my process is I go to Upwork, I see the problems, I bid for the jobs, I get the contract. I don't always get the contract, and the clients that I do work with, because I've worked with, say, a law firm now or a civil engineering firm now, and the essence of the solutions is always the same. It's usually something lead generation or sales for the most part. Most businesses online looking for a solution only want to save more time, improve efficiency, again, a function of saving time, or make more sales and make more money. And once you build this for one of these businesses, even if you have to work at a reduced hourly rate, you basically get a free, better than a free case study because you are getting paid on this platform. It may not be the same hourly rate that you're used to in your 9 to 5 job, but it's still better than doing it for free You could do it for free also, but this is just a better opportunity because you are getting paid for it also. Because once you've built it for one of these businesses, you can then go out and approach other businesses and say, you can say, right, you're a law firm, you probably have the same problem as well. I've solved it for this business. Would you be interested in me solving it for you? And that's pretty much how all businesses work. And even Hormozy recommends this about how do you get your first 5 customers, where he recommends doing it for free and then moving to paid. The model just stays the same. You solve a problem, you verify, is this a problem that other businesses have as well? And even if it isn't a problem that other businesses solved, you learn something in the process, right? You learn what not to do. Business, based on what I've learned, is just figuring out what not to do until you figure out the one thing to do, and then you go all in on it. And if you're probably wondering, why am I sharing this? Why am I telling you the story of what I'm doing right now, even though I'm no multi-millionaire yet, right? Because one thing that I value personally, and why I'm making this course also, is so many times the courses I buy from some of the biggest creators across business in general is when they are extremely successful and when they have made the multiple millions of dollars. But at that point, they are so far disconnected from what is actually working in the trenches right now that a lot of times I feel their information isn't always the most relevant. For example, if you are in the seventh grade in school, the advice on moving from the seventh grade to the eighth grade, the advice that's most relevant to you is not from your parents who went through school and finished their degrees 20 or 30 years ago. It's not even the person who went through seventh grade 5 years ago. The most relevant advice to you when you are in seventh grade is from someone who's already in the eighth grade, who's just done 1 year before you. Their advice is the most relevant to you. And that's why I frame a lot of this as beginner lessons that I learned the hard way, that I wish I knew. And that's why I tell you, like, this is what I see working in real time and what I am doing myself. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to listen to me. You can do it your way. I just give you these as tips and guidelines of what to possibly avoid based on all the mistakes I made, so that it can shortcut the process for you. And just to give you more context and my process with Upwork and how I've been using this, is I started working on Upwork for $5 an hour despite having a $50 per hour job. I sent a bunch of applications, got no replies for the first few times. Eventually, I got my first client who was willing to pay me $50 for a project. It took like about 10 hours to do effectively at $5 an hour. But I finally had my first client and my first testimonial, which really matters a lot on these platforms. Getting your first few testimonials to get the ball rolling is extremely important. So if you have to do work at an hourly rate below your job rate, it's worth it in the beginning. So after getting my first client for $50, I sent more applications, got more rejections until I got my second client who was willing to pay me another $50. And so after I had 2 successful jobs and 2 testimonials, I slowly moved to $15 an hour and eventually got my first $100 project, first $250 project, and first $400 project. It was game changing for me at the time that yes, this online business thing could possibly work, that I could be working a job completely remotely and flexibly. I kept just sending applications, and I'll tell you why this is important. Because even though I was getting rejections throughout, every now and then I would get these wins: another $250 project, another $400 project, and then one project where maybe I was just lucky. A client reached out to me, they happened to be in Adelaide, and that converted into a $10,000 project. It started out as a 5K project, and the second phase of that, which is what I'm currently working on, is another 5K project which is in the works. And there is the potential to grow that into another 2.5K project. There's this quote that I like that I share with you: you will never miss a lucky day if you never miss a day. And sometimes just being on platforms like these, you never know what luck might fall your way. if you just keep sending the applications, if you don't stop, and if you never give up. This is just data that I've seen work and data based on my experiences having been on Upwork for the last 4 to 5 months. I also like this idea from Ali Abdal, who talks about you've got to get started, then get going, and eventually get good. If you're stuck, it means you're not moving, and by definition, you haven't gotten started. So, the step right now to take is to just get started. So, if you are comfortable at this stage, having built automations that save you time, you are ready to go out there and start monetizing your skills. Upwork is a great platform to share what works with me. And if you have any questions, you can reach out and I can tell you more about my experiences on the platform. But I know it can work for you too. And so, just to summarize and wrap up this whole video, to take away, you learned the skills of monetization in the first half of this course. Now you are ready to go out there and monetize. Get on platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. Work below your normal hourly rate at a job if you have to. Get your first testimonials, get your first clients, repeat that for other businesses, and repeat it until the point that you win and you make so much money you don't know what to do with. I love this quote from Jim Rohn, which says, if you solve your money problem first, you get to arrive to all your other problems in style.